Welcome to the Trust Issues Podcast, the show where we question everything society tells us about how to live, work, eat, and be. I'm Erica Auckland, a mom, entrepreneur, and advocate for living life on your own terms. Here we challenge the status quo, from the food we feed our families to the way that we build wealth and well-being. You'll hear unfiltered conversations with everyone from farmers, financial experts, and everyday people who are doing life differently, all with one goal: to help you live healthier, freer, and more abundant. If you've ever felt like there's more to life than following the crowd, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. As you may know, when Kyle and I started the Trust Issues Podcast, our focus was clear: sharing conversations with incredible entrepreneurs, business experts, and inspiring leaders to help you grow, thrive, and feel empowered in whatever you're building. And while I still love those kinds of conversations, I have a little pivot, if you will, or a plot twist that I'm bringing to the show. I have really been feeling this pull lately, a pull towards topics that go beyond business and dig deeper into how we live and take care of ourselves. And I'll be really honest with you. Something that inspired this was RFK Jr. and his movement, Make America Healthy Again. Now, I'm not here to get political on this show. This is not about politics. This is about what I believe every human being on this planet has a right to and deserves: access to clean food, clean water, products that aren't going to disrupt our hormones or make us sick. And as a mother myself, someone who is raising two boys in this world, it has become increasingly challenging to navigate raising healthy kids. At least in my perspective, I've become more aware. I've become more aware to the conversation of health and wellness because I'm trying to raise two healthy kids. And so this movement really inspired me because I started to see people raising up arms and bringing conversations to the table around: why does our Kellogg's products in the United States have more toxic ingredients and artificial dyes than the ones that Canada serves to their children? I started just seeing people bringing conversations to the table that I have been wondering myself for decades. If you know my story, you know that I am someone who struggled with my own health very early on. When I graduated from university, I found myself incredibly sick. I had been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I was struggling with severe acne. I was fatigued. I was constantly bloated. I had severe digestive issues after being on birth control for 5 years. And this really opened me up to a completely different world of holistic health, because the practitioners that I had worked with prior in the traditional space were honestly just not helpful for me. I started learning about Chinese medicine. I started learning about homeopathy, about all these different things that honestly I had no experience in, but it really led me down this road of becoming an advocate for myself and my own health as someone who was in her early to mid 20s and who was thinking, do I want a family one day? Do I want to raise healthy children one day? Because I was seriously sick. It took a very, very, very many years and a lot of work to heal myself. And I did that through natural ways, through lifestyle, through food, the things that I was putting on my body, everyday products, my toothpaste, my deodorant. And so I have been at this journey for quite some time, for over a decade. And, you know, I really just feel like this conversation is so important. And this year, as the podcast has transitioned to a solo show, it really gave me a chance to reflect on the direction that I want to go, not just with the show, but honestly, with my career. I started thinking about, what legacy do I want to leave behind? If my kids in 10 years from now listen to this episode, will I be able to give them a manual for how to live a healthy life? And really that answered the question for me of what I have been most excited about and conversations that I have been wanting to bring to you on this show. I've started having conversations with people like Mark McAfee. He's a dairy farmer. He's passionate about raw milk. I am someone who is very passionate about raw milk as well, and started drinking it again actually in 2020. I used to drink it in my childhood and became dairy free for like 8 years, somewhere in the mix. Or Katie Whalen, I just interviewed her. She's the founder of Joy Wellness. Jen Thatcher, she started a non-toxic toxic toothpaste company and deodorant company after her son was diagnosed with a brain tumor. These are all the kinds of topics that truly light me up. And because they connect to how we show up as our very best selves in every single area of life, I truly believe that you will find so much benefit to these conversations, whether it's motherhood, it's business, it's anything in between. I truly feel like at the end of the day, what do we have that is most valuable? And it is our health. If we don't have our health, we can't show up for our families. We can't show up for our work. We don't feel creative. We don't feel inspired. We feel sluggish. We feel tired. We don't feel like we can contribute and do the things that we were meant to do. And so I don't want you to worry. I'm not abandoning the business conversation altogether. If you're an entrepreneur, you probably already have these curiosities within you anyways, because I think when you become an entrepreneur, you start to question status quo and you start to think like, what do I want to do differently than what maybe I have thought I was going to do my whole life? Or, maybe you went to college and then you graduated and realized, well, getting a traditional job is not for me. Well, the same goes for maybe how you're eating and how you're living. Maybe you have conversations with people already in your everyday life, or maybe you just have curiosities and you want to explore them. I want to bring you inspiring episodes through this show that will absolutely give you those answers to those questions that I've had myself. I'm giving myself in this podcast the freedom to expand into new spaces and cover a wider range of topics that I know you're going to love. And today I'm diving into a solo episode to answer your burning questions, from the shifts I'm making with this podcast to your favorite health tips and business advice. We're going to cover it all. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's jump into this Q&A session. The first question comes in from @TaylorGutierrez Co. And she says, were you ever on hormonal birth control? How did you support your body when stopping? Taylor, I was on birth control actually all throughout college. That was 5 years of my life. I spent an extra semester at university, and it's one of the biggest regrets that I have in my entire life. It altered my health forever. I came out of college with serious health issues, and I wish I knew then what I know now, that birth control is toxic and it depletes your body, it alters your hormones, and it is not how our body is designed. And so when I got off of birth control, it took me many years to figure out how to support my body. I was having all of these issues and symptoms. Ultimately, I got off birth control because I knew I didn't align with it anymore, but I didn't really know exactly why. It really led me down this road of learning about my health in a way that I could have never known before. So in a way, even though it was horrible, it was a gift, because I ended up going to health coaching school, getting a certification, learning about things like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda and all these different modalities of health and wellness, homeopathy. It just changed my perspective on life forever, to be honest. And so how I supported myself was just, number one, just altering my lifestyle. I really was aware of the importance of movement, strength training, what I was eating. I got it wrong for many years. I was really focused more on just juicing vegetables and kind of almost starving myself of what my body really needed, which was high protein, some good sources of carbohydrates, some just whole foods, delicious foods. But really when it came to me supporting my body, it's been a journey. And it's really why this show exists and why I'm bringing these conversations, because it's not just one thing. It's a combination of many things. It's learning about, like I said, strength training. It's learning about taking the right supplements that my body actually needs, supporting my thyroid. And my thyroid was super tanked after college and everything. So it's a combination of all those things. So I just encourage you to keep listening along to our shows and our episodes, and I think you will find a lot of benefit. Another question came in from @Megan Loteke, and she asked, I would love to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what kind of business to start. Megan, my suggestion for you is, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? If someone asked you to talk about something forever and you could just like go on and on and on, that's probably a good indicator of the direction that you need to go in. Ultimately, when it came to me making some shifts in my own business in the last year, I really asked myself what I was passionate about. And like for me, health and wellness is like such a huge part of my life and how I live my life and how I raise my kids. So that ended up really answering the question for me. So ask yourself, what are you passionate about? Someone else asked, what are my thoughts on the animal-based meat and fruit diet? This is at _ Valerie Johnson asked this question. Hey, Valerie. My answer to this is really, I think it's a great idea to lower inflammation, to get yourself whole foods. I mean, if you eat some beef, some grass-fed beef, some maybe drizzle some honey on some fruit, have some cheese, like that's a really great balanced meal. Also, it's going to be pretty low inflammation. Obviously, none of this is health advice formally. But I think it's a great idea. I do think that it's just being mindful of what your body needs and also perhaps even getting some type of a blood draw so you can see if there's any deficiencies that you have, because ultimately we could all be eating the same, but we might have different needs depending on what our bodies need. And that can really be shown in some type of lab work. That is a really great place to start to look at what you uniquely need, because you may have some genetic markers that are different from mine or somebody else's. You may have some other nutritional needs depending on if you've had babies before or not. So I think it's a great overall way to get whole foods into yourself and into your belly. But I would also think a little bit farther down the road and maybe get some testing. At Mrs.Rude_ish asked, what's a typical day of eating and do I aim to get a certain number of protein? A typical day of eating for me is waking up. I have a yummy, warm, milky drink, probably some type of a matcha, something that's like really delicious and soothing. I just like love to have a warm drink in the morning. And then I'll go to immediately have some type of eggs and sourdough toast with fruit on the side, butter, maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Then I will have for lunch, typically some type of a snack plate. I like to do a little bit of sliced steak or chicken, some type of protein, maybe even sardines. I love sardines. And I'll do some cheese and some fruit. I'll drizzle some honey, maybe even some bee pollen. And then for dinner, my husband and I always cook at home. We love to cook at home. And I love to do things that are like in the slow cooker or the high pressure cooker. So I'll do things like a pot roast with root vegetables cooked in bone broth, maybe served over some soaked rice, or I'll do, some buttery mashed potatoes with it. I love a good cozy dinner. And then I'll usually have a bedtime snack of some type of Greek yogurt with fruit and honey drizzled on top as well. So that's a typical day of eating for me. And it's what works for me really well. At Kaylee Joe _ asked, what are some prenatal or eating nutrient dense foods? I think at the end of the day, like if you are supporting your fertility and your body, you are supporting your goal of taking care of a pregnancy or carrying a baby as well as postpartum. So I don't want to officially recommend anything here that I would say like you need to do this thing, but I will say what has worked for me. I focus on high protein. I focus on making sure I'm getting really great root vegetables, lots of good fruits. I'm trying to get plenty of amino acids in my foods as well. So I will try to do things like gelatin and collagen. I try to get vitamin C from my food. So like I said, citrus fruits are something that I will do a lot of. Coconut water. I like to hydrate, making sure I'm getting plenty of electrolytes. I also do things like beef liver, which is very nutrient dense. I do lots of beef bone broth or even chicken bone broth. I like to do things that are very nutrient dense for dinner. And I will do I just think about how can I make my food even more nutrient dense. So I'll cook my rice in bone broth. I make sure I put grass-fed butter on my potatoes. Things like that are just really nourishing to the body and things that I focus on personally for health and well-being, and also serves as prenatal support. At Carson M. Love asked, any tips on finding friends or a tribe that shares our health and food values? I think this is such a great question because who you surround yourself with is so important. And for me, I think that I've met some of the coolest people ever through social media, through Instagram. I reach out to people. I think just being social helps a lot. If you see someone who posts something cool, like comment, send them a message, invite people. I also try to see who's local in my area. I use social media for that. I think it's just really about putting yourself out there and meeting people wherever you go. Another thing too is like out and about, for me, like I think about, I go to this market, it's called Urban Market. Okay. If you're in Franklin, shout out to Urban Market. but such good, delicious food there. And everyone who's going there is like-minded, right? So I like to talk to people. I meet friends there all the time. So that's a really just simple way to meet people. It's like, where are you going? Are you going places where other people will have like-minded views as well? Another question I got was, how do you recharge being a busy stay-at-home mom and business owner? And this is at miss_Jessica.Barrows asked this question. And for me, getting outside, nature and fitness, 100%. If I am getting outside and working out, movement for me is like so recharging. Like I will feel 100 times better if I do that over sitting on a couch and, like watching trash TV. That never makes me feel better. How I recharge is getting out in nature, like leaving my phone in the car or at home. And typically, I'm not going alone. I'm going with my husband and my kids, or at least my kids. I'm really never alone in this era of motherhood. And that's really okay, but I still recharge. It's a great way for me to feel like I'm able to give to myself. Other ways too, like if I can get a moment to myself, I love to take an Epsom salt bath, get in the sauna, stand in front of the red light. Those things make me feel really good, even if it's 10 minutes in the sauna or 10 minutes in front of the red light. Feels amazing. So those are things that I love to do that help me feel really, really great. These are just a few questions that you have asked me on Instagram. If you want to ask more, you can always send me a DM on IG. But I just want to thank you so much for supporting this show. I know that I've probably thrown you a couple curveballs at this point, but I just think that's an example of, hey, we are all able to change and pivot, and it's totally okay if you want to reinvent and rebrand yourself as many times as you want. I hope these conversations bring you so much joy and enlightenment and empowerment so that you can do everything you need to do to have the healthiest family and live your best life. I'll see you on the next episode.